time to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits. Whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts, this is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Hersema.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. Happy Friday to everybody out there. I hope everyone has really been enjoying the recent podcast, specifically the Friday episodes. As you know, we have guests on Friday typically to have a long form conversation or to catch up or just to talk about what's in the news, current events, and things of that nature. Well, today we got another great guest today. We're going to be joined by Joe Deemers. And for those that don't know Joe, Joe is, it's funny how you describe people sometimes, right? Their official titles or whatever. And honestly, I don't know a lot about Joe Deemers. I do know that he's married to Ginger Lunny, now Ginger Deemers, of course. Ginger Lunny, a great athlete at Rio Hondo Prep back in the day, and also a great coach at Rio Hondo Prep. Joe and Ginger were married a few years ago, and Joe has a perspective that I want to talk to him a lot about today as someone who kind of came from the outside, I guess, if you will, to be involved in CARE Youth League. And for those that don't know, for those not affiliated with Rio and CARE, and again, I get a ton of my guests from that pool, really, because these are the people I know. And when you go to Rio or you've gone through CARE, you understand that, yeah, you kind of know everyone in some form or fashion. And you know, so many of my guests have been from there, and there's been some officials on here too, but most people have gone through the program, are now either still involved or, you know, were, of course, and moved on, but still support it. And so we talk a lot about CARE and Rio here on the podcast. People go their journey through there. Well, Joe's someone that didn't go through the program, but did marry someone involved heavily in the program. And so that's what I mean by like the outsider outlook. The outsider outlook, that might be the title of our show today. But you know, Joe has that, because that outsider outlook, and sometimes to truly get to look inside of something, right? You need a kind of a broader perspective, someone who wasn't involved in it, didn't grow up playing sports and CARE and know all these leaders and everything your whole life. Sometimes you get the true analysis, if you will, of from someone who isn't invested, right? It's a lot of times with sports teams, the fan base, fan is short for fanatic, right? They've been loyal, they've suffered, they've had great times. And so they're just, you get a kind of a biased perspective at times. And so my point, my analogy, I'm coming up here, sorry, it's a little early in the morning, is that sometimes to get an honest assessment of a team, you need that from an unbiased opinion from a commentator or someone who's a fan of another team or whatever. Now, that said, I am not saying people who support CARE are fanatics or anything like that. I mean, we're all fans of CARE and Rio. But again, this is just a different perspective. I love different perspectives, right? I have a lot of friends with very different perspectives who came from a lot of different backgrounds. That's what makes this world great. So it's not to say Joe is like some kind of, I don't even know how to say this. Oh, he's not one of us or something like that. That's not what I mean. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you guys that maybe aren't involved with CARE like Joe is. And for those of you who are involved or were involved with CARE Rio, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, with that being said, we're going to bring Joe on here and talk to him about that perspective, but also some things I know that he and I share a lot of common interests. Joe's a big baseball fan. He roots for those hated ones up north, the San Francisco Giants. So a lot to talk about with baseball starting back up again. I know Joe wanted to come on here and talk about the new rules and kind of the MLB agreement and everything. So we're going to do some of that today. I can't wait. Joe and I have not talked a whole lot. So this is going to be raw and hopefully entertaining. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So without delaying any further, let's jump on here and bring on Joe Deemers onto the Get Home Safe podcast. Okay, joining me today is Joe Deemers. And Joe, you and I have never really chatted much, so I'm looking forward for this opportunity here. Good morning. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Joe, I was trying to think of ways to describe you, and you told me off the air here you're a structural engineer, but I think you're probably your biggest I don't know title, I would say, other than dad, of course, is you're the guy married to Ginger Lunny, Ginger
I
Deemers now.
am. Yeah, I am.
So
I kind of married into this care community. I wasn't not here by birth, just married in.
well, as I mentioned kind of in my intro, sometimes you get the true perspective of someone who, wasn't necessarily involved. Like sometimes you get better answers on things from maybe your friends than your family, where you choose your friends and not so much your family. So I'm sure you got some great perspective for us today on Care Youth League and Rio Hondo Prep and such.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, let's talk about first off, kind of where you grew up. Where are you from, and how did you end up down here in Southern California?
Okay. I grew up in Sacramento. I went to college in San Luis Obispo, and then I came down to Southern California for work in 2003. And then let's see, it was 2007. I met Ginger. We got married in 2009, and that's how I ended up here. And that's how I ended up here. Do you want me to talk about my high school experience growing up, things like that?
Yeah, sure. Where you went to high school in the Sacramento area also?
Yeah. I went to Sacramento High School, which interestingly is it's the second oldest high school in California. Um, Although it doesn't really exist anymore. They they shut it down in 2003, and then they reopened it later as a charter school. But yeah, I grew up in Sacramento, and it's interesting that my high school experience was the opposite of going to Rio Hondo Prep. It was the opposite of your experience. So first thing, it was huge. It was 2,000 people. Um, my my graduating class alone, there were hundreds of people in it I never even met. I never even knew. I mean, that's like how big was your class?
15,
20,
me and 14
15.
others.
Yeah, I had hundreds of people in my graduating class.
Wow.
I didn't even know if the teachers knew my name. Like I was, they could have been like DMV workers for all I knew. I was just going to class, and some of them were good, some of them were okay. But um, one time, it's like one time when Ginger and I were dating, we were at her house and she got a phone call, and it was one of her students, and he was calling to ask about the homework, and I'm like, your teachers have your phone number, or your students have your phone number? What? It never would have even conceived. I never would have even thought of calling a teacher on the phone. But I mean, that's a big difference. The biggest difference of all between my high school and Rio is that you'd think, big public school, kind of potential sports powerhouse. No, we're terrible at sports. Not only were we terrible at sports, like I didn't play sport. I didn't even know anyone who played sports. Like none of my friends played sports at school. Yeah, I mean, you have a school of 2,000 people, like what, one out of 50 of them is on the football team, like maybe one out of 100 of them is on the basketball team. It just wasn't a factor. It wasn't anything anyone talked about. I didn't, I didn't know if we went to the playoffs. I didn't know when baseball season started. It was just like not a factor at all. So it's the total opposite of Rio.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't imagine. See, for me, I remember going to high school, and I always thought, or had other friends who, weren't involved in things. I was like, how do you go through high school? Isn't it boring just like going to school and nothing else and not having all these other activities? But I mean, again, that's all I knew. So what was it like for you? I mean, did you participate in anything else outside of sports, or was it just kind of school and head home and do other things?
Well, yeah, a lot of times after school, you just went home. um, we did have a pretty good drama program. I was in a couple of musicals, so that was some time for part of the year. But I mean, lest you think my high school experience was just terrible, it wasn't. The things that Rio filled for you, for me, was mostly filled at my church. We had a high school group. There was maybe 40 or 50 high schoolers, and we all came from different schools. And then, but we went on trips. That's where a lot of my great memories from high school come from. Any people that I'm still in touch with were people that I knew from church, not people from school. And that's where I had like great leaders that were an influence on me, the kind of people that you had at Rio and Care, or the people that I had at my church. And yeah, so it was very different.
Well, I think that's so important. You make a great point there with your experiences, but like I look around now and you see, teenagers have so many distractions, and I think it's more important now than ever that they do have some type of outlet. Maybe it is sports and all these different, drama and musical programs or something, and hopefully it's also something involved in a church, because your church groups and everything, as you said, give you so many memories. So I get a little, I don't know, sad when I see kids not doing something,
Mhm.
in one way or another. And with the church stuff, was it, it's not easy to convince teenagers to do those things. Also, was it a push from mom and dad, or was it just something you wanted to be a part of?
It was more from a couple of my friends were going, and they invited me starting in about middle school, and that's how I ended up going. And it actually probably ended up more similar than you would think to your experience there. I mean, like we had a yearly ministry trip to Mexico, which I think you guys did too. And let's see what else. Yeah, just overnighters, camps, all the good memories I have and stuff all come from that. And so, yeah, if I had just gone home from high school every day at 3 o'clock and didn't do anything, then it probably would have been, not a very good teenage years. But it was because of my church experience.
Well, that's awesome. You mentioned being in a few musicals. Does that mean you got some vocal cords there, Joe, like your wife Ginger?
I do, yeah, yeah. My kids get it from both sides of the family. I think we got we got some talent on both
Wow.
sides.
I like it. I like it. Awesome.
Mhm.
Well, so high school ends for all of us one day, and we still talk about it sometimes, talk about the old days and everything. But after high school, it moved on to college, and was that an easier transition because you went from this giant high school to a pretty large university?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I also, I went away to college, to a college town, and everyone there is from somewhere else. So everyone lives in the dorms. Everyone um, everyone's new. Everyone wants to meet people. So, and again, that was very different from, say, Ginger's experience going to Pomona and commuting. Um, so I still have a lot of really good friends from college also. Um, Actually, a group of us, we get together and we go on a trip every summer. And so we've done that for like almost 20 years straight now. So yeah, college was really fun years for me. And yeah, college is going to SLO is what eventually got me down here to Southern California.
Well, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is a phenomenal campus, great area. And you're right, all the kids who attend are from somewhere else. You get that mix kind of Northern California kids, Southern California kids, although probably a lot more Northern. And I've been there to umpire baseball, great field. They play football. They have a nice football stadium. And so from an athletic standpoint, I've always been like, oh, Cal Poly SLO's a great university. So what would you say? Did you take any great memories from your college years, or was it just kind of a blur? Living on campus and being involved, I mean, in the heart of it like that is a totally different experience for people like me who commuted every day. So what would you say? I don't know, some lessons maybe or something from your college years.
Hmm. One thing was right away I got involved with InterVarsity with a Christian group, and I think that was really important. That got me, hooked up to friends right away. It kind of kept me. Obviously, there's a lot of temptations, a lot of bad ways you could go in college when you're living on your own. I mean, just the idea of an 18-year-old going away and living somewhere without their parents, that's a little risky.
Who came
I'm
up with
surprised.
this as a
Yeah,
standard, right? You're like,
yeah, yeah. Why do parents allow that? I don't know, but but getting involved, right away with good people helped a lot. And yeah, again, we went on trips and uh, yeah, I mean, just like having dinner with 100 friends every night it's crazy, and it's a really living in the dorms and stuff is a really cool experience. It's really fun. I don't know if it works for everyone though, because there were some kids that in the dorm that first year they were gone after 3 months because they just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't wash their clothes and eat meals when they needed to, and they just weren't ready for it. So I guess it's not for everyone.
no, it's not. I think it's weird. I find the college experience interesting because I obviously was there one time and was on college campuses and dorms and things, but like it's a sink or swim situation where you either sink, like you kind of learn how to be, you kind of learn to be an adult, but I would also argue, I think people who are commuting and going to, I don't know, doing that life too, being away from the college campus, I think in some ways you grow up a little bit too. Not to get into too many weeds here, but I feel almost like colleges in the recent years anyway have done a lot of damage to kids and kind of giving them, I talked about this years ago, like college is like a bubble sometimes, and it's just like you're young, you're vulnerable, whatever, and you're in this group, this just small bubble basically, and it's like utopian thoughts, and it's just like, well, that's not how the real world works. That was kind of the arguments with Care at times, but I think in colleges, that's really where there's some potential risks and things.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's probably even increased since I was in college. You know, when I went there, there was, you know, there was the dorms and there was a rec center and some places to eat. And I just went back and visited about 10 years ago, and it's like doubled. Like they tore down the fairly new rec center and built a newer, better rec center. And they built new dorms, which are like apartments that like have their own swimming pool and have their own like coffee shops. And it's like, you know, there's like a mall there. I mean, yeah, I mean, these, you know, 18-year-olds are living in these dorms and they're not going to live ever somewhere so nice and fun in their life after that. Like, it's not real life at all. I almost feel like, you know, you or Ginger, or someone who, you know, went to school and worked and did other things, that's really kind of more preparation, and that's kind of more real life than what a lot of kids are getting in college now.
That's a great point. You live in a building that you're never gonna live in
Yeah.
this nice, or maybe not immediately. Yeah, that's definitely how I felt for sure. Well, Joe, great college experiences. You said it eventually led you to down here to Southern California, where you would eventually meet Ginger. So I don't know if that's, you know, God's path or whatever you want to call it, but it sure seemed like it. So tell me how
Mhm.
after college kind of led you down here and meeting Ginger.
Yeah, so I got a job in Pasadena, so I moved there. Um, I didn't really know anyone, but I lived almost right across the freeway from Lake Avenue Church, which, you know, anyone who lives in the area knows it's that big church right there on the freeway. And so I got involved there. Um, I had, you know, good experiences there for several years. And around that time, Ginger started going there too, just to kind of, you know, meet people and just kind of, I don't know what you call it, you know, just kind of stretch out a little. And so she decided, okay, this church is huge. I got to get in some kind of smaller group where I can meet people. So, you know, she's a singer. She decided to join the choir. Um, Now at Lake Avenue Church, the choir sings every week. They sing at every service, which means they practice like twice a week. And the only people who can do that really are like people over 60. So she's trying to meet people. She ends up in a choir with a bunch of, you know, older people. But it turns out there was one girl there who was her age, named Sarah, and she happened to be a friend of mine. So I think it was at a Christmas party at Sarah's house that Ginger and I ended up meeting. So yeah, it all worked out.
That's fantastic, because you think about it. I mean, I sure would if I showed up. There was a choir and it was all older people. It's like, hey, I made a mistake. I probably, you know,
Oh, I walked into the wrong room.
yeah, yeah. But she, knowing Ginger, and I know her great, but she, you know, she was a teacher of mine, and always very friendly and outgoing, and just I could see her making friends with everybody and fitting right in, and then making good friends with the younger person there, and making it work. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful story. So, which date did she bring up? So I'm involved in this youth sports organization in this Rio Hondo prep school.
She I guess she learned this from past experience. She kind of laid it on me gradually. She didn't just do it like that. She figured I'll just let him figure it out. It's fine. Which was probably good. I mean, the whole care community, like, it's not that weird. It's a little unusual, but I kind of think it's more like living in a small town, you know, like
Mm.
if you lived in a small town, you would know this, you know, you would meet kids and then you would grow up and go to high school with them, and you would know their parents, and their parents had gone to that same high school, and you would still, you know, go to the football games after you graduated. That's actually how that's how it is for a lot of people. It's just not in LA County, but um So it's not that unusual, but it's a little unusual.
So she brought it on gradual.
Mhm.
And I mean, were there certain moments where she's bringing things up and you're like, wait, what? How many people, like how many people did you graduate with? Wait,
Yeah.
it's, you're right from the perspective of if you don't know Karen Rio, it does seem there's been some bad names thrown around and I don't get into that, but like, yeah, it's a very small town feel. It's so unique and it's just, it's very different. So it is hard to explain to people. So what were some, when she's talking to you gradually, what were some things that kind of came up and you're like, wait, what?
Um,
Like,
I guess there were times I noticed she would talk about different teachers or different coaches, and then I would realize they were related. I'd be like, oh, those two people are sisters, and oh, all of the what? There's like 12 cousins of all of this in the same family. There was let's see. Um, oh, so like I say, I was going to Lake Avenue Church, and I kept going there while we were dating. And I just said, once we had decided to get married, I said, okay, I'll go to your church. But I'd been there a couple times, and I think the first time I went, like it didn't occur to me that when I walked in there, every single person would know I was a new person, and every person would know I was there with Ginger. And I think Pastor Horton actually like called me out from the stage, like, oh, we got a visitor. He's here with Ginger, Joe. Everyone say hi to Joe. I was mortified. What?
all the heads turn.
Yeah.
That is the
I mean,
worst feeling when all the
as
heads
soon as
turn
I
and look
walked
at you.
in, everyone knew I was a new guy there. But so that was a little weird. But no, this is an even better one. So I was, starting to figure out that there was a sports league here, and that there, a lot of the people, the coaches and everything all went to church. And so, he had said, Pastor Horton had said something about football, and then he said, "Oh, we got some guys here. We got the Stanford guys here. We got some guys from Stanford here." And I'm thinking to myself, the Stanford football team is here? Like what? I didn't know there was a care Stanford football team. I'm like, why are there Stanford football players here?
Yeah, when they renamed all the teams from, the Gators, Atlantic, and all this, they chose college teams, which I was like, I don't really like because it leads to confusion like that. That's hilarious. Whoa, Stanford football team came down for church. This is great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense though, because the college teams, they play every sport. So like it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of weird if you were like the Dodgers and you were a basketball team, but if it's a
Yeah.
college
Oh
team, it
no.
works. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So it was odd. It was some funny moments, but was there still a sense? Did you feel a sense of kind of a welcoming, to look around and be like, man, there's some really great people here.
Everyone was always really nice to me. Some people really went out of their way to be, yeah, to be nice and welcoming. It's a hard hurdle though, to go in a place where so many people have known each other all their lives, and have so many common experiences, and some of them kind of a sense that like, hey, I've got my friends, I don't need any more friends. So it did take a little while to feel comfortable and to kind of find my niche there. Um, but yeah, I'm glad I did. And yeah, there's a lot of great people and a lot of great, um, there's no other place I'd want to have my kids at this point. At Pearl, like I trust every teacher, I trust every coach, which, these days it's a little scary to, have kids out in the world and to see what they could be experiencing. So it's definitely the right community for me to come into.
Yeah, and Ginger has always been someone very outgoing, very always smiling. She's the type of person, she can't walk by someone without saying hello or even across the room. So yeah, you got thrown into it big time with Ginger there being who she was and just a wonderful, wonderful person. So you, you didn't just marry into care basically, but you married into the Lunny family, and we all know the Lunnies here on the podcast. Tell me what that experience is like. What and I say this term with endearment, a cast of characters, if you will.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I love all the Lennies. Tim, I see definitely all the time, and Bob. I think early on when Ginger and I think the first time I met him was he got us into Disneyland, and so I met him in his element in Disneyland, in his full thing and everything. Yeah, Yeah, the Lunnies are great. I know you want to talk about Mr. Lunny for sure. Um, it's kind of unfortunate. When I met him, he had Parkinson's and dementia, and is really, and that was kind of starting to progress. So I didn't really know Mr. Lunny the way that you and everyone remember him. It's just very sad because everything I hear about him is so amazing, and I hear great stories. And I knew him for a long time, but I didn't really know the Mr. Lunny that you knew.
Well, we've had a great opportunity on here to talking to alumni and stuff, and um, having conversations about men like Gary Lunny, who was so impactful and just, man, he was so funny. When he talked, everyone listened. And I mean, the Vietnam side of him would come out sometimes. He tells it, hey,
Hmm.
boom, what, huh? He was so, I've never met an individual so unique, a Latin teacher, choir teacher, who was also a defensive coordinator in football, and just an amazing mind and a wonderful person. He's definitely missed. And I'm sure you still get, I don't know, memories and stories from not just the Lunnies, but care people as well.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to your show, and especially around when he passed away, everyone had something amazing to say about him. And I still see his artwork on the walls. I still hear music he wrote at church. And yeah, I mean, his influence is all over the place.
Well, I just remembered this, that, and I think I talked to Ginger about this, but your guys' wedding,
Hmm.
he couldn't physically walk down the aisle. And I think it was Ginger came up with the idea that she wanted music that he had written to kind of walk her down the aisle. And so it was me and Ken Lee and Tim Lunny who
Hmm.
played our trumpets to that song, as Ginger walked up the aisle by herself, but carried by the music that her father wrote.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of moving parts in that wedding. There was a lot of little pieces, and one of them, yeah, was the trumpet trio that Mr. Lenny had written that you got to participate in. So yeah, see, he's everywhere.
Yeah, it was an absolute honor, and to do it for Ginger, who I always said got me through chemistry and biology. I don't know how, but
Mhm.
some great stories. She was a young teacher when we were, juniors and seniors in high school. She was just starting out really at the high
Yeah, you
school
must have
level.
been you must have been like in one of her first classes.
Yeah, and she told me that, because I was, oh, I don't know how I got through it, but yeah, well, she tells the ammonia story every year, I guess, because you said, hey, it's lightly, and I just took a huge whiff and was like, whoa. So I'm proud to contribute to her science class every year. Was she teaching when you guys met?
Yeah.
Yeah, and coach, was she was coaching high school for a little bit there, especially basketball.
Yeah,
Was she?
she had been coaching basketball. She wasn't anymore. She was coaching soccer at that point, and she kept coaching right up until probably a year after our first child was born, and then her coaching days were kind of over after that.
Yeah, she's got to run around and chase kids now, like I'm
Hmm.
sure you do as well. How many kids you guys have now?
We got three.
Wow, three.
Hmm.
And let's see, I'm trying to remember, boys and girls, two girls, one boy. Is that right? Or
Yeah, yeah. So Kendall is 10, Clara is 8, and Luke just turned 4.
wow, was the Luke a Star Wars thing or no?
Everyone asks that.
Well, it's the Lunny, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, that was just a name we liked. We actually had that name picked out before our first child was born. So if we ever had a
Awesome.
boy, he was going to be a Luke. He's Luke Robert. My dad's name was Robert, and he passed away just a little bit before Luke was born. So Luke Robert.
That's wonderful. That is a wonderful tribute to your father. So the three kids, you said the youngest is 4. Are they all playing in Care Youth League? Was there, like, I mean, I would think with Ginger, yeah, they're gonna play. They're gonna play in this league. I mean, was there any hesitation with you, or what's that process been like?
No, I loved it. Even though I didn't play sports in high school, I played baseball as a kid, and I like sports, and I had gotten used to going to games and stuff. So yeah, it's just become a normal thing for us. Uh, Kendall's on the Hawks, and Clara's on the Longhorns, and Luke he'll be starting playing in the fall. And so about 3 years ago, I started coaching, so Luke's going to be on my team next year.
Really? Look
Yeah,
at you, Coach Joe. And
yeah.
you had never really, you said, been involved in sports. I mean, you said baseball or whatever, as a kid, but like, what was that or experience diving into coaching kids?
Yeah, so I mean, I played baseball for, 4 or 5 years when I was a kid, but I've never coached or anything, but I've just kind of been around it. And I've been looking for a niche, like where I could get in. A few years ago, I started umpiring at Care, just baseball, and I just did it for a season or two. And so I did that. That was fun. Um, actually, actually, me and one of the dads, we almost like pulled off a little plot. He was kind of he was kind of yelling at me playfully from the stands while I was umpiring. And so afterward we said, hey, we should do a thing where like you start yelling at me and then like I give you a warning and then like you yell at me more. It'll be like, you're out of here, get out of here. Kind of put the fear in all the other parents. Like, oh man, they can eject us. Oh. But yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
One
watch out.
hostage.
Yeah, but we decided not to do that. But yeah, so I umpired for a couple years, and then about 3 years ago, they're like, yeah, you've been around this long enough. You know sports. You can coach 4 and 5 year olds. So I was like, okay. I didn't really get any like real like training on how to do it, but I just jumped in, and so yeah, and it's fun, and I guess I'm okay at it.
That age is unique and fun. And I remember coach, I like coaching the older kids, but we went and coached the fit 5-year-olds as well. And I learned real quick that it's all about how you say things, right? In
Mhm.
any, sport, but any level. But I remember coaching these 5-year-olds and working on ground balls, and I rolled the ball to him and I kept getting under his glove. And one of the kids, I don't know, say his name was Chris or something, but I said, hey, Chris, lower it. So the ball kept going under his glove. I said, hey, you got to put your glove on the ground. And so he looked at me kind of weird and he took his glove off and put it on the ground. And I'm going, oh, he did what I said. Exactly right. I said, good job. But no, I meant when you, so
Yeah, yeah. One time we were playing. It was the first baseball game I think, and the bases were loaded because they just hit singles, and the ball is hit, and I look at the guy at third, and I say, run home," and all three of the kids just run straight home.
oh, from second first.
Yeah, look at that. Come on.
Yeah, the guys that have been coaching the young kid ones for a long time, they know certain phrases, exactly how to phrase it, and you're just like, oh, okay, wow. So that's good stuff. It's fun. You get the funny stories of the kids running the wrong directions and everything at the young age. But I gotta tell you, Joe, with umpiring, I've umpired a lot of different levels. I still have some nightmares of umpiring youth ball. I think those games are the hardest ones to work. So what was it? You get hit by many baseballs? What'd you think of your umpire experience?
Yeah, and again, I just did the lower levels, which are
Yeah.
not, not it's not too difficult, and the parents are at that level are fine. So it was okay. I don't know if I got every call right. There was a call one time at first, and I called him out, and the base coach he kind of gave me a look, and I'm like, maybe that was the wrong call, but you got to stick with it. So he's out.
Yeah. Man, I wish it were that easy everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember umpiring on those fields at Care and just kind of start to get a hunger for it and then the desire for later on and pursuit it. It was a fun time. So yeah, it's funny. Everyone umpires officiates so well from those bleachers and our couches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the best angle out there, but as soon as you put the hat on, it's like a totally different perspective. I mentioned the Lunnies and the Joe family,
Hmm.
Lindy Joe, Harry Joe, and their kids. They were playing ball, playing Rio not too long ago, although time is flying by now. What was it like for you guys watching them play at Rio Hondo Prep?
Yeah, it's fun, and of course, when you have someone in your family to root for, it kind of gives you that extra incentive, not just the school, but people personally. And McKenna's still in high school, so she's still playing. Um, yeah, Matt was. I think basketball was kind of his main sport that he was really good at. I remember one time when he was a kid, Matt Joe hit. I think it was a walk-off grand slam in a Care game, and that's like there's
Wow.
man, what bigger thing can you do in your young baseball career than hit a walk-off, an actual over-the-fence grand slam. So I do remember that.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I never hit a home run in my life. I hit the top of the fence like 3 or 4 times when I was little, and that's the closest I got. A walk-off grand slam. Good for you, Matt Joe. That's incredible. So speaking of kind of Rio sports, the first few times maybe you went to a Rio game, and kind of just seeing that sense of community you talked about. Maybe it was football, maybe it was another sport or whatever. I think football is done so well at Rio, but girls basketball, girls volleyball. What was it like going to some of these sporting events early on and being like, oh man, this is a little different than just your standard average high school game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I remember at first going to football games, and it's a little intimidating. Like I'm thinking, like I am literally the only person within a quarter mile here who didn't play football. Like I'm the only, say, male over 15 who didn't play football. Like my wife knows more about high school football than I do. Yeah, it's a little intimidating, but yeah, it's fine. I got into it. I don't I don't know football like you guys do, but I can watch a game and enjoy it. And going to those games too, it's like you see so many people, like I mean, so many alumni, people that graduated 20 years ago still come out and go to the football games. And so it's kind of cool to see lots of different people. And half the time I'm not watching the game. I'm just, catching up with people and stuff.
Yeah. And again, that's a great part of it. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And for a while I was going to some baseball. My previous job, I got done a little earlier, and so I could go to baseball and softball games, which I really love. I wish I could go now, but they're at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the week, so I can't really go. But I would go to a lot more baseball games if I could. And yeah, and then basketball and volleyball games I like a lot too.
Because you said, I mean, baseball is really the sports you truly do love. You maybe like the other ones, but where does that love of baseball come from? Is it because you played it, or why was that?
I don't know. I mean, I got my sports loyalties from my dad. And growing up, I was probably a little bit more of a football fan than a baseball fan. Because I mean, being a kid in Northern California in the 80s and 90s, the 49ers were like pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You couldn't not root for the 49ers. But somehow, like around college, I just gravitated more towards baseball. And yeah, I don't know why, but it just became like pretty much the only sport I really follow now.
So again, when you come down to Southern California, there's a lot of transplants down here, but I mean, you're coming into to Dodger country, and you are a very big San Francisco Giants fan, and as you should be, being from up north. So was there a lot of, I don't know, friendly trash talking, with the in-laws or care people, or even Ginger for that matter? I mean, the Giants Dodgers rivalry is a very big deal. It started in New York, and here it is now out here on the West Coast. I mean,
it's the greatest rivalry in all of sports, I think.
100%.
Because they're so even, like just their records all time, their World Series and everything, so even. That's one of the things that makes it great. Yeah, coming down here, let's see. I actually found that, so everyone always asks me whenever the Giants are in town, they're like, oh, you're going to go to a game. But I find I don't really like watching Giants games at Dodger Stadium. It's just not fun to root for the other team. Like, it's when everyone cheers and I sit there, and then when I want to cheer, I'm like, I'm not gonna cheer. I'm not gonna cheer when everyone else is not here. Yeah. So one time Ginger and I went to a game, and like we're walking into the stadium, and I'm wearing my hat and everything, and a guy just drives by and he just yells, boo, boo. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I turn around and I look at Ginger, and she's going, boo, boo.
Good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always, when the Giants had their World Series run, I was like, all right, I'm going to play it cool, because I know the Dodgers are going to have their year, and I'm not going to, I don't want to take it from, all the fans here. So I'm going to play it cool. But then when the Dodgers won, people did not repay the favor. Like they were still giving it to me. Like, oh, come on, guys.
Those classy Dodger fans. That's all I could say. Yeah, I was at a Dodger opening day once, Dodgers Giants. When who was it? Orlando Hudson, I think, hit for the cycle. I think it was him. But we're at this game, me and Todd Carson, and I never been to an opening day, and I never wore Dodger. I wore I wore a Fullerton hat. It was, very dark and I had an orange F on it. And as we're walking in, this Dodger fan, he probably had, a few pops or something, but either way, he got in my face and he was like, "Hey man," like, I was like, "This is an orange F. This isn't a Giants logo. Like, are you that hungry to like jump on someone from another team that you're like, oh, that looks like a Giants hat?" I'm just like, I don't know. I think it's a wise decision to not attend Dodger games as an opposing fan.
Yeah. Well, once, I think it was maybe like the first year I lived here, and I had another friend who was in town who was a Giants fan, and the Giants were in town. We're like, okay, let's go to a game. And so we just went there and just bought tickets there. And so like when they sold us the tickets, they could tell we were Giants fans. And we get in the stadium, and I didn't really know the stadium that well at the time. We're trying to find our seats, and there's like the top two sections that are like absolutely farthest away. And there was no one in like those four sections, but they sold us the very last two seats in the far corner, farthest possible seats away. Like, jerks.
Hey, I think I saw a playoff game up there one time, and it was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, no one behind me, no one to the side. This isn't too bad." But no, I get what you're saying. That is rather rough. I'll say this, for me, those 5 years where the Giants won 3 World Series
Mhm.
championships, very difficult. I was a diehard Dodger fan. When I got into umpiring in the minor leagues and stuff, you kind of distance yourself just because you're like, okay, everyone yells at you no matter what team they are. But I was like, I don't have to love the Dodgers, but I can always hate the Giants. I can hate them. And to watch them win 3 World Series in 5 years, I just, those were dark times. And congrats to you and your fanhood. What was that like? Celebrate. You said your dad, you mentioned him earlier. I mean, was he able to see these with you?
Yeah, I mean, not physically with me, but yeah, he got to see those 3. The last time the Giants had won the World Series was the year my dad was born. So yeah, to see that, I mean, that was cool. And it was a little unfortunate being down here. I didn't really get to like celebrate with a lot of people. Like I watched a lot of those games by myself at home, but but being able to celebrate kind of vicariously distance wise with my family and other people up there, yeah, it was cool.
Oh man, well, I kind of know what you mean being an LA Rams fan down here in LA, where we have teams from everyone else roots for other teams.
Yeah.
So to celebrate the Super Bowl with my dad was like such a cool thing to see, because he had waited his whole life basically. And we saw Super Bowl in St. Louis, but it wasn't the same. So that is awesome. Those were amazing years. And yeah, Dodger fans, I'm all about recent relevance and how good, but still those 3 titles were fairly recent. And of course, Dodger fans win a little league season, 60-game World Series, and they think they're the greatest team ever. And I'm just like, you can't say that was my biggest thing when the Giants won the 3. I was like, they can talk forever now until the Dodgers win a bunch. So
Yeah.
but you're a good guy. You don't rub it in. You're humble, and then you get it thrown back out at you, Joe. I apologize for the LA
right.
fans. Oh, it's awful. Now, how was Ginger when the Dodgers won? Did she still on the boo thing to you, just right in your face?
No, she was just excited for her team. She wasn't rubbing it in too much to me. Yeah.
A true professional. Yeah, professional indeed.
Classy.
Way to go, Ginger. Well, Joe, kind of continuing on baseball, we all have our fanhood, and we're approaching the spring here, and it's just about baseball season. And up until a few weeks ago, it wasn't looking good. What have you made of this whole Major League Baseball lockout that we saw? And we know they reached an agreement, so the season will get going here in a few weeks. There's going to be a lot of double headers apparently to make up games. What are your thoughts on the whole process, and how excited you are now that they've reached a deal?
Yeah, so a couple months ago, up until a couple weeks ago, like you said, it wasn't looking good. I mean, when the lockout started, they were like, oh, both sides are miles apart, and they haven't even talked in a week. And I'm just like, are you crazy? Like, there's nothing you can be fighting over that is worth losing games for. Like, you will both sides will lose out so much if they, shorten the season. Like, this is crazy. And it got closer and closer. And I'm like, okay, the urgency's got to set in soon. And they're still like, no, they haven't talked in weeks. I'm like, what in the world is happening? And they canceled the first week of games. And man, I was pretty down. But then I guess the urgency kicked in and they said, okay, we got a deal after all. All right, we're going to play. So I guess just the actual threat of losing games pushed them to make a deal. And yeah, so yeah, I'm excited. Can we go through some of the points of the agreement, I think, that are going to be.
Definitely. And before you jump there, I just want to say, to me, it was such a bad look with how everyone in the country has struggled the past few years. People still out of work, businesses not able to get employees and things of that nature. It's just a really bad look when billionaires and millionaires can't
Yeah,
come to an agreement. It's just
absolutely.
like you said, there's absolutely nothing to be fighting about. Working conditions. You want to talk about working conditions? Really? So anyway, yeah. What are your thoughts on some of the terms and things?
Okay, so the things that I think the players wanted most don't really matter to the average fan. I'll just go through them kind of quick. There's like more bonus pool money to the younger players. There's a higher minimum wage for the youngest players. There's going to be a limit to options, so players aren't going to move back and forth between the majors and the minors so many times in a season. So okay, all that's fine. They're doing a draft lottery, which is meant to be like an anti-tanking mechanism. They figure, if teams say, we're not going to make the playoffs, we're just going to sell off our best players and save money, and at least we'll get the first draft pick next year. Well, now they won't necessarily get the first draft pick. So that's going to de-incentivize tanking. So I think that's good. An interesting thing that people don't really know about, but I think fans will notice, is I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but they're going to give draft picks to de-incentivize service time manipulation, which I think is an interesting one. So like right now, and you've seen this with a couple players, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Chris Bryant were big examples, where a player, like a rookie, was really good in spring training and the team's excited about him. They're like, okay, this guy's going to be in our opening day lineup. He's going to be one of our best players. And then they break camp and they say like, oh no, we're going to keep him in the minors for a few more weeks, or for another month. And they'll make up some BS excuse like, oh, he just needs a little more work on his defense, or oh, we're just trying to protect him from injury a little. But the real reason is because if they keep him back a couple weeks, they can push off for a whole year when they become a free agent. And the players have always not liked that. And so now they're disincentivizing that, which is good because you'll get the best young players on your team opening day. So I think that's a good thing. Okay, but all those things are kind of side issues. The two big things are, one is that the designated hitter is going to be permanent in the National League. And I'm a little mixed on this because I like the strategy with the double switches and pinch hitting and stuff. Like I went to an Angels game once and I realized like, wow, the 9 players who started this game played the whole game. Like there wasn't a single lineup change the whole game. And so I think we are going to lose a little bit with not having those things. But on the other hand, I've kind of known for a couple of years that it was inevitable because every other league in the world, pretty much, other countries, college, minor leagues, they pretty much all use the designated hitter. So yeah, I probably knew that was going to happen eventually.
That has been a debate with baseball fans, I would say, for ages. I mean, just since the DH came out, the whole concept of, wait, you're gonna have a player who just hits. Wait, pitchers aren't gonna get to the plate. Like they're just gonna throw at guys now. It's been a debate forever. Old school baseball fan, nationally, no, this is not real baseball. And so that debate's over now. And it's crazy. I'm not so sure how I feel about it yet. Because I, like you, I've been on both sides of it. Well, you got an older guy who just hits, or pitchers is boring when they get up there anyway. But again, it seems like we are purposely taking strategy out of a game that some would call boring. I don't, but and that there's also some strategy being taken out in another rule change as well.
Let's see. Actually, there's a couple more things I wanted to say on the DH.
Sure.
Oh, we've already seen this with free agent signings too. Like one of the first signings after the lockout ending, the Nationals signed Nelson Cruz, and he's a definite like only DH kind of player. So it's the first National League team that kind of made that move. The Phillies signed Kyle Schwarber, who is, he can play outfield also, but he's kind of a regular DH guy also. I mean, even things like sacrifice bunting, it's not glamorous, but that's it's a part of the game. It's a strategy that's kind of going to be gone now too. So, I mean, I can get used to it, I guess. Okay, and then the other big big change is that they're going to the 12-team postseason format. Where
So
it's going to be
help me here. I haven't dove into it yet. I know, okay, you obviously have your 3 division winners, and then is it the next 3 best records, or is it the second place team in each division? Is it just, how's it going?
It's the 3 division winners and 3 wild cards. And this, I don't like this so much. So the top 2 division winners get a first round bye.
Okay.
And then the next division winner and the 3 wild cards play each other in 3-game series.
Okay.
And then those winners will play the top 2.
The divisional 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm kind of an advocate of like radical realignment, where we just get rid of the American and National League and just do 4 geographic divisions. Because
I'm with you.
The United States is naturally divided into 4 parts. It's East, Midwest, South, and West. And that way you could have 4 division winners, and then you could do like 8 wild cards, so they could all play each other. That way all the division winners get a first round bye, and there's a real incentive to win your division. The way it is with this new setup, it's kind of weird that the four division winners get a bye, but then 2 division winners don't, and they're just kind of lumped in with the wild cards. So it's not perfect.
It's similar to what the NFL used to be, with the two top division winners getting the bye. I will say this part I like that, it gives more. You can't have 10 teams making the playoffs in the in each league, but I like that at least they're doing, I think, a 3-game series. You play 3-game series most of the year, so you might as well play a mini 3-game series for a postseason. Because the whole 1-game playoff between 2 wild cards, I did not like. I like a 1-game playoff if a game 163 is needed, but I didn't like the 2 wild card teams play a 1-game thing and then we move on. That's just me.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I never liked the 1-game wild card. The point of that was to make it harder for any wild card to get through, to give you a real incentive to win the division. But it was just too much of it's too lucky,
Yeah.
It's a 3-game series is kind of short as it is, but a 1-game, that's just not fair at all. That's another change too, is that there's going to be no game 163s. Any tie for division or for anything is not going to be played. It's not going to be a 1-game playoff. It's just going to be a set list of tiebreakers.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often, but I've liked those game 163s. Again, I didn't like the wild card, but I liked the 163 because it was like, well, we need to play one more to get in the playoffs,
Yeah, I mean, those teams are separated by less than 1 game already, so having it come down to 1 game, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense if it's like a 95 win wildcard team against an 88 win wildcard team going down to 1 game.
So as a baseball, I don't know, purist, you seem like one. Do you feel that the 15 teams in each league, 6 now, each from each league, are going to be making the playoffs? Do you feel that it waters it down now with these 3 wild cards versus, or you already mentioned some changes you like to see? Is 6 teams too many in each league?
It's kind of a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's only 2 more than what it was before, but yeah, I mean, you really have a chance of a really mediocre team winning the World Series. That's the big problem. I mean, last year, I hate to say it, but the Braves, they only won 88 games. They won less games than the Mariners, who didn't even make the playoffs. So that's, it could happen already. But now, I mean, let's see, I looked up this number. Where is it? Okay. So over the last 9 years, the team that just missed the playoffs, so like the team that would be the 3rd wildcard team now, they averaged 84 wins. So could have some kind of mediocre teams just get hot at the right time and ending up going out the whole way. So yeah, that is a fear, but it's it's more players, it's more storylines, and I understand why they wanted it. Yeah,
500 ball clubs getting in the postseason. You don't see it too often.
Yeah, I mean, basketball does it. It's what, 16 out of 30 teams make it, right? But
yeah, 8 and 8. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but basketball, it's different in that, well, one, the postseason is like a third of the season. It's so long. And a lot of people who watch basketball, they don't even watch the regular season. They just start watching the playoffs. And just the nature of the sport is that the best team's pretty much going to win anyway. I mean, like, how often does a really low seed in basketball end up winning the championship? I mean, it basically never happens. So there's less chance of a mediocre team getting hot and going all the way in basketball like there is in baseball.
Baseball's different though. You've seen it before where wild card teams, it's not, baseball is such a long season and so many games that when the playoffs come, it's not about the best team. It's about the hottest team in a few weeks, and who's playing the best at that time, because that's the beauty of baseball, is the length and the ups and downs of a season, the losing streaks, the winning streaks, catching a team in the standings. Like it's a season long mission, and that's what makes the game unique. And so I like that their playoffs have kind of worked themselves out. I think 12 out of 30 teams, I'm okay with it. If it went any more than that, if you went like 8 in each, now you're going over half the teams in each league making the playoffs. That would be too much.
Yeah, the owners wanted 14, so at least it's only 12. Yeah, 12's on the high side anyway, but yeah, I could live with it. I mean, man, when I was a kid, it was 4 teams. 4 teams made the playoffs,
Yeah. Oh yeah, 2 series, and even way before that, it was just okay, you 2 World Series. Like,
yeah.
So, what are some other changes and that to look forward to, Joe?
Okay, well, there's 2 things that they're not changes, they're actually reversions. They were temporary things that were done for the COVID season. And that is the extra inning runner that starts on second. That's gone now. So that's good. People didn't like that. Yeah, it was meant to speed up the game. Like, okay, let's get these extra inning games done. But then the visiting team would score 1 and then the home team would score 1 the next inning. And it's like, it didn't really speed up the game. So yeah, I'm glad that's gone. Then the other thing too is 7-inning doubleheaders is gone too. That's good. I didn't like that. I don't think anyone liked that. And there's going to be a lot more doubleheaders this year, like you said. But there's also a provision that the owners can impose a rule change with 45-day notice. And in the minors, they're doing a lot of experimenting with things like a pitch clock. They've been trying that for a couple years, and I'm open to that if it really does speed up the game and it's not too much of a detriment to pitchers. I'd be okay with that. An interesting rule I saw in the Atlantic League, they're doing a rule called the double hook, which means if you pull your pitcher before the 5th inning, then you lose your DH. So from that point, the pitchers have to hit. So maybe we're not done with pitchers hitting after all, but it really incentivizes you to keep your pitcher in for at least 5 innings. I think that's interesting. And I think let's see how these things work,
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if you get rocked early or even a guy gets hurt and it's just like, well, you're going to have to play, there's going to be a consequence for pulling a guy. That's an interesting rule change. I will tell you, I got a lot of friends still working in minor league baseball, a lot at the AAA level and such. And, minor league baseball is really, or Major League Baseball is really experimenting hard in the minor leagues with this automatic balls and strikes system that they call the ABS. And as a former umpire, I don't like it. I think the game is meant to be officiated by humans. It's played by humans. But it's the real deal. It's coming. Basically, there's an earpiece and the umpire is there still, squats down, makes a call if a ball's hit or something. But other than that, he listens for a ball or strike, makes the call. And, a lot of times the hitters are angry, but the umpire's like, nope, it's a computer. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this automatic, we've all seen a pitch we didn't like in a game, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a little mixed on it. I lean against it. Most of all, I just don't really see how it could work. I mean, you could have some kind of, sensor above the plate, but how do you get the height? Like, how does the computer know where the knees and the letters are, So I just don't quite see how it would work. I don't think it solves the problem of missed calls. I don't know. But again, I'm willing to watch and see if it works.
Yeah, the game evolves a little bit, but I don't know. Some things I'm just like, I feel like baseball gets in its own way sometimes, trying to do too much. Like, for instance, as an example, they clearly want more offense, right, in the game. It's more exciting, but at the same time, they're trying to implement speed up rules. And it's like, well, which one is it? This is contradictory because there's not too many 15-14 games that are 2.5 hours. Like, so if you want more offense and you also want games to go faster, you're kind of fighting against yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Speeding up the game means just getting outs faster.
Yeah, you go. And, you want to hurry guys up. I'm sorry. No one likes, well, maybe you do. Maybe I don't mind a 4-hour baseball game because if I'm watching a game, I'm watching a game. But, it's not always great to sit through the whole thing like that. But baseball's not meant to be played slow, but sometimes it is slow. And
Mhm.
it's just the way the game is. It's different than any other game out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I heard someone make the point, it's not so much about the length of the game as it is the pace of the game. So like even I don't usually sit and watch an entire game, but like I can tell if a game is slow, like if they, do a pitching, three straight pitching changes, it's just really slow, and it's the pace of the game that matters. It's not the length of the game. So I had an example I was about to give, but I just forgot. But anyway, yeah, like the pitch clock. What do you think? Do you think that's a distraction to the pitcher that's not gonna work?
So I used it in college baseball my last year. They put a pitch clock in. When there was no one on base, there was always a pitch clock. It was, and as there, I think with no one on, okay, fine. Then they tried to implement it with runners on. It got to be a little more confusing. We didn't have visual clocks like they did in Major League Baseball, and now in college baseball they do.
Mhm.
So it's a lot more visible, and like it's got to be enforced. You can't just, well, give them a break on that one. So I think it's as an official, it's one more thing you got to police, which I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
But and that said, it's one more thing to complain about. If you
Yeah.
do call it, I mean, there's enough to complain about from players and coaches. So now, hey, you're rushing me, or hey, speed him up. Like, I think it could cause more problems. And again, what does that do? That slows the game down rather than speed it up. So it's all contradictory, I guess.
Yeah. 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 I went to a Quakes game last year, and they had the pitch clock there, and I didn't I mean, I can't say I noticed any difference, but I don't know. I just have to see in the aggregate whether it slowed games down or anything. Oh, quick story. When I went to that Quakes game, you might think this is funny. So the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes were playing the Lake Elsinore Storm, and the Storm's uniforms are black and white with a little bit of red. And so every time like they made a play or got an out, Ginger would like kind of start to cheer and then be like, "Oh wait, that's not the team I'm rooting for," because she was rooting for the uniform. Every time she saw the black and white with a little bit of red make a play, she wanted to root for him.
It's
So
a natural reaction. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, never mind.
Oh wait, that's not the team I'm rooting for. Yeah.
Good for her. Got that real Hondo blood just through and through. That is
Uh,
hilarious.
yeah.
Well,
So let's see. Were there any other major changes? Yeah, I think that was it. But we're getting the full 162 games. I wasn't expecting that. I thought they had canceled the first week for sure. So I'm
well,
pretty happy about all these things for the most part.
what are your thoughts on them outlawing the shift?
Mm, I don't think they should. I think you should have, if you figure out a strategy that works, then the other team should have to react to that strategy. On the other hand, I do see the sequence, kind of the dominoes that fell when the shift started happening, and that is batters realized it was harder to get singles, so they started, going kind of home run or nothing. And if it's home run or nothing, there's less runners on base, there's less stolen bases, there's less double plays, there's less good defense, there's less, sacrifice bunts. When there's more home runs, there's more strikeouts. So all of those things have made the game a little less interesting, and those were all caused by the shift a lot. So I understand how that has affected the game, but I don't think finding ways to outlaw it is the right answer either.
Yeah, I mean, like football has these rules against the defense and everything, but they still can be in a position really to. They're not restricted position wise to try to prohibit the offense from doing something. I don't like it. It's like I said, taking strategy out of the game. But the $40 million hitters, they want to get up there, and they're the stars, and it's all about them. So, but to your point, you're 100% right that it has made the game home run or strikeout, and that is very, very boring
Yeah.
to watch for sure. I think baseball, if we look, Joe, we're both Californians, right? And there's been all kinds of rules the past few years, for instance, that have gone into place that are it's almost to like make people feel good. Some of these rules in baseball, it's just, oh, this will make people feel good. But it's not really doing anything. That's how I feel like
Mhm.
about the pitch clock. And there's been a lot of rules in California the past few years. It's like, is
Mhm.
this really doing anything, or is this kind of just a visual thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, they're trying a couple different ways to restrict the shift. Like you have to, you have to have two players on each side of second base, or you have to have all the players start on the dirt. And it kind of feels like, like in volleyball, you like start in a certain position, then as soon as it's served, you move to the position you really want to be in, kind of. I think that's kind of what it's going to end up being. Like they start on the dirt and then immediately run out to like where they're going to want to be. So yeah, I don't know.
What now being down here, how often do you get to watch your Giants? Have you seen kind of some of their off-season moves, or how excited are you for the upcoming season with them? A fresh start, right? For all these teams, it's always hope springs eternal, or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah. I can't imagine they'll be better than they were last year. I mean, last year, like almost everyone on the Giants had like one of their best years. So even with some good moves this year, I think they're not going to match last year. But yeah, of course, I'm excited. You start the season excited, kind of no matter what. They just signed Jock Peterson yesterday.
Saw that.
Okay, that's cool. He was a local guy. He's a Bay Area guy.
Mm-hmm.
They need pitching. They lost two of their starters free agency last year, and then of course Buster Posey retired kind of unexpectedly. So they're going with one of their top draft picks from a couple years ago was a catcher. So they're going to go internally with that. But let's see. Yeah, Dodgers got Freeman. I thought Freeman was going to stay with the Braves until they traded for Matt Olson, and then obviously that indicated that Freeman was moving on. I thought if anything, the Dodgers would probably be targeting a shortstop to make up for Seager, but they went with the first baseman. I thought maybe there's two big shortstops still on the board. There's Trevor Story and Carlos Correa. Dodger fans do not like Carlos Correa, of course. So I didn't think, not that usually factors in when the team making a signing, but so I thought maybe Trevor Story might be on the radar for them, but they decided to go with first baseman. But yeah, a couple more signings are going to come in quick succession in the next week because teams have started, they've opened up camp. So those big players are going to get signed soon.
What are your thoughts as someone who's, watched baseball your whole life and you've seen it change here and there? What are your thoughts on this new age we're in, this analytics age, as far as I don't know, pitching changes and how which guys to put out there? I think some clubs do it more than others, but I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of this different approach to baseball from a front office side?
Yeah. Some guys are really good at it, like Gabe Kapler with the Giants. It's just constant mix and match. I mean, he would take out a starter halfway through the game just to get a different matchup, a lefty righty matchup. And I mean, I felt like 20 to 23 players played in every game, and that can be a little over the top. But then again, I'd go to an Angels game when Sosha was coaching, and it's like you wouldn't make any moves the whole game. So there's definitely a middle ground. Some are better at it than others. Do you mean like during the game or with like signing and free agency and stuff?
A little bit of both. I mean, I feel that, Moneyball, right? The A's were the original Moneyball guys because they just didn't have much of a budget. And now, we've seen so many Dodger playoff runs here where I think fans just get so frustrated with some of the pitching decisions, or like, hey, why is this guy in the lineup? Well, he's against left-hand hitting. I mean, I think we've as far as managing goes, now most managers only win you a couple of games a year, but they lose you a lot, I think, and with decisions. And I just feel like that old school manager where there was a feel, right? Billy Martin, there was a feel. Joe Torre, yeah, a lot of times he just sat back and whatever, but there was a feel for why decisions were made, not necessarily a computer and a stat sheet.
Yeah. I think Dodger fans are probably their biggest frustration with Dave Roberts is that he just overthinks the pitching, tries to get too fancy with the pitching changes, and I don't know. Even if it does win, marginally, it maybe wins like one more game a year, but it alienates the fans a little bit because they don't see it, like they don't get why that move was made. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's just
I think Gabe Kapler with the Giants, I think he does a really good job with it. Like his moves seem really strategic and they seem like they really work. So I guess he's the kind of manager that can manage that way, and maybe a lot of them aren't as good at that.
Oh, definitely. And kind of wrapping up baseball here as a fan for so long, we know the 3 World Series in in 5 years was wonderful. What are some other baseball memories that you've experienced as a fan? Maybe a stadium you went to, maybe a Giants game you remember that was crazy. What comes to mind when you think of your baseball fanhood?
Oh, I'm surprised I almost didn't mention this. I'm one of those people that's trying to visit every baseball stadium,
Yes.
and and I've only got two left, so I'm pretty close.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, I've got Toronto and Minnesota are my last ones, so I'm gonna try to. I don't know when I'm gonna. I don't know when I'm gonna fit those in, but
When did this journey start, and how did it go? How did it get going?
okay. Well, I mean, I had been to like the California stadiums, and then in 2005, I think I went on a trip to Atlanta. So I'm like, I want to see a game while I'm there, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to see every stadium. That was like the sixth stadium I had seen, but I'm like, I can do the rest. So in a couple of years after that, I just went on a couple trips by myself, and I would hit like 5, 6, 7 stadiums in a row. I did that a couple times. I hit almost all of them in a few years, and then, and then life happens. I got married and
Yeah,
had
yeah.
kids. And a couple years ago, so I hadn't been to Cleveland or Cincinnati. And a few years ago, I used to travel a lot with work, and I had a lot of airline points. And I said to Ginger, I said, oh, these airline points are going to expire. So I should just fly to Ohio and see these two teams. And I was kind of just
Great
kidding.
excuse.
I
Great
was kind of,
excuse, Joe.
I was kind of kidding. And she was like, yeah, you should do that. It's like, oh, all right, I'm doing it. So I went to Ohio. I saw Cleveland and Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is a cool park. I like that one a lot. Now, while I was
Nice.
there, and this was just lucky. So Cincinnati, it's not really true, but they claim to be like the first baseball team. They um, and so apparently the first major league game, according to them, occurred in Cincinnati in 1868. And the day I was there was the 150th anniversary of that game. And so they like built this little monument, and they had like this whole like press conference and stuff. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know I was going to see this. The 150th anniversary of professional baseball. So that
That's
was pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
No, that park is incredible.
Hmm.
I'm fortunate to be there, and this was always a dream of mine. When I was in high school and college, I was like, I want to go to every ballpark and see just a game. And how hard would it be? Just a day, a weekend every summer. Just go somewhere, see the game, come home. And I haven't been able to, but I've seen a few. What are some other ballparks that and it's fun going to a game when you don't have a vested interest too, just to
Yeah.
soak it all in too?
Yeah. There's
What are
no
some other
stress
stadiums?
or anything. Yeah.
No, have a hot dog, have a soda, enjoy. Just, oh, there's a ball game.
Hmm. Yeah, people always ask me, oh, well, what's your favorite one? What's the best stadium? And I hate that I don't have a good answer to that, because I think all the new stadiums are fantastic. They're all great. And even the old ones, the Wrigley and Fenway, even though they're not as good a stadium to watch a game in, I still appreciate the history and stuff that, stuff was happening there 100 years ago that we're directly connected to today. I think that's really cool. And also for me, like when I did like an East Coast run. I went to 6 games on the East Coast, and that was the first time I had ever been to the East Coast. So I got to see a bunch of cities and a bunch of stuff I had never seen before. I didn't go on these Rio trips like you, where I got to see the whole country every summer.
I know.
And then I took a trip to the Midwest, and I took a trip to the South. I got to see a bunch of cities and states I had never seen before. And so every time I go somewhere, I try to get in a game if I can. I've been, strangely enough, I've been to Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay 3 times, which it's probably the worst stadium in baseball, but I've been there 3 times.
Yeah, I've been there too. Yeah, that place. Oh my goodness. What was I going to ask you about this? So, here's a question. So I've been to not that many, but quite a few. Now, how do you calculate, I should say, for instance, when a team moves in a stadium? So for instance, I went to a Nationals game at RFK Park, but now they're in, Nationals Park. I went to a game at Shea Stadium for the Mets, but not the new park. So how does that go into your travels?
Okay, so I've been to 28 teams stadiums, but for some of
Teams.
those
Okay.
I have been to both. So yeah, I've been to RFK and Nationals Park. I've been to both New York teams, current and old stadiums, and then I've been to the old park in San Francisco also. So that's 4 more. So I've been to 32 stadiums, I guess. But then there's several teams who now have new stadiums since I've been there: Atlanta, Miami, and the Rangers. So I still count those, but those are parks that I haven't been to either.
Yeah, well, if you got to go back, no big deal,
Yeah,
right?
I'll find some reason to go back.
Once you get Minnesota and Toronto out of the way, you just start again.
Start
And
doubling up.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, every 20, 30 years they build new stadiums anyway. So you'll be good to go. I went to a game at San Diego, the old one, the old
Oh yeah,
Jack
Murphy.
Murphy. That was interesting. That Petco Park is gorgeous, man. I
Yeah,
love
yeah, that's a great one. I've been there 5 or 6 times. There was a time for work, I traveled to Seattle a lot, and so I've been to 6 or 7 games there. That's a cool park too. I just missed a bunch of stadiums though. Like so many teams built new stadiums in like the late 2000s, and it's like if I had started a few years earlier, I could have been to like 5 or 6 more stadiums that aren't used anymore.
I will say this. Well, Pittsburgh, gorgeous.
Yeah.
I set Cincinnati and the new Yankee Stadium, unbelievable. But it pains me to say it, but I will say there's almost nothing better than a day game at AT&T Park, whatever it's called now. It changes name. Up high, looking out on the water and the baseball below you. That's one of the best scenes in all of baseball is at San Francisco.
It is, and I haven't been there for probably almost 10 years. So we are planning on going back this summer for sure, because during the last baseball season, my younger daughter Clara got so into baseball. I mean, she started watching every game with me. She knew all the players, and so I told her like, okay, we'll go to a game next summer. We'll go to a game in San Francisco. And one day, okay, so this is cool. So Kendall was getting her uniform for a care team, and she wanted number 24, which of course everyone down here knows is Kobe's number. But for whatever reason, she wanted 24. She's like, yeah, that's my favorite number. And then Clara goes, hey, Dad, wasn't Willie Mays number 24? I was like,
so proud. So
yes,
proud.
yes, he was. That's amazing. So she's just read it in a book, and so she's read like all these baseball books lately. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to a Giants game next summer. Yeah.
So you are raising your children to be Giants fans? Is this what I'm hearing?
No, you know what? They're really mixed. They're best friends with the Carsons, and so they're, Cammy and Hope are diehard Dodger fans, so they're mixed. But Clara definitely enjoyed watching a lot of Giants games with me.
That's awesome, man. No, that's a special bond for sure that I'm sure will go on a long time. You know what? A park we didn't talk about, a minor league park. I don't know if you've been up there, is Sacramento River Cats. That's quite a yard.
I've been dying to go there for a long time. They built that park right after I left Sacramento. And so the last couple times I've gone up there, I've been like, we got to get to a game, and it just hasn't worked out. But yeah, I've always wanted to go to a game there. I've been to, like I said, I went to a Quakes game. I've been to a Grizzlies game in Fresno. And yeah, minor league games, we talk about how they experiment with rule changes in minor leagues. They also just experiment with all sorts of other stuff, like promotions, stuff with the fans. Like you can do a lot more kind of crazy things in minor league parks, and occasionally things catch on in major league parks too.
Well, and it's affordable for families, take the kids, and there's so many minor league parks right here in Southern California to go to, and it's accessible. You get home quicker. I mean, if you want to watch a pretty good experience, I think going to a minor league game is wonderful. And I kicked around the minor leagues a few years umpiring. It's a good atmosphere. It's a good thing for kids, and you see pretty good baseball as well.
Yeah, and you can sit close, and sometimes you'll see a player, and then a couple of years later, you see him in the majors, and you're like, I remember seeing that guy. I was 10 feet away from him,
Yeah. Yeah. The development for sure is something that baseball does very, very well. And that whole process. Wow. Joe, I wish you nothing but the best on your journey. I want to hear about when you hit those final 2 stadiums. I'm incredibly jealous, man, because I've hit a few, but I haven't been to games in a while. And man, I'm trying to think of places I would really want. If the Oakland A's end up moving to Vegas, or I think Nashville would be a great Major League Baseball city. That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, in the South, if they divided baseball into 4 divisions like I'd want, the problem is that in the South, depending on how you define it, there's only 5 teams there. So yeah, Nashville, North Carolina, Austin, Jacksonville, they could all easily have teams. So maybe the A's will move there.
how now being a Northern California guy, do you know a lot of A's fans? Would people be upset if they left? I mean, that stadium they play in is atrocious.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah, so Sacramento is maybe a little bit more A's territory than Giants territory, actually. When I was a kid, a lot of my friends were A's fans, and then of course in 1989 was the Battle of the Bay, it was the Giants and the A's, and it's also strangely it's the one area where it's kind of okay to like both teams. Like in New York or Chicago, especially, you cannot like both teams, but for some reason in Northern California, you can root for the Giants and also kind of like the A's too. So, yeah, a lot of my friends up there still are. They'd be upset if the A's left, but for I don't know the good of the game, yeah, they need a new stadium for sure.
Oh yes, absolutely. It'd be good for everybody. And man, I didn't know your baseball journey. This is awesome. Maybe Ginger told me one time. I'm not sure, but yeah, now I'm all fired up for baseball and the sunshine and hot dogs and
Yeah,
popcorn and all that stuff.
yeah. When they get the deal done, the same time the time change happens, and then we start, the care baseball season 2. It's like spring just hit in like 2 days. We're full on in spring now.
Out of nowhere. Yeah. It's funny. And a lot of guys who umpired, they just like, they can't watch it or they just don't even want to be around it. I'm kind of one of those weird guys that I'm like, I'll still tune in. I'll still watch and enjoy it. So baseball is upon us. I appreciate you chatting with me today, Joe, about a lot of baseball and also your experiences kind of seeing Care Youth League from the outside in. That was entertaining as well.
Yeah.
Joe, I will see you around, I'm sure. Give my best to Ginger, to the kids, to the Lunny family. And yeah, I'm sure I'll see you at a Rio game here in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks, Matt.
You got it. Well, what a fun conversation that was with Joe Demers chatting about Care Youth League, Rio Hondo Prep from an outsider perspective, and then baseball. Man, baseball talk got me all fired up for some of the upcoming games. That's some of the rule changes and things I'm not that fired up about, but spring training is upon us, and the season will be starting here soon. And wow, Joe Demers traveling all these baseball stadiums. I'm jealous, and I traveled through the minor leagues and saw a bunch of different cities and places, but to go to all these different ballparks for these teams has always been a dream of mine. So I got to live vicariously through you, Joe, asking you about these ballparks and such. So good luck to you on your travels. And much love and support to the Demers and Lunny family out there. So great talking to Ginger a few months ago, and now to talk to Joe. That was a lot of fun. And I want to say this about baseball. I've always pitched to people, hey, get out and watch a minor league game. You can get close. Maybe it's not the big leaguers, but it's still professional baseball. And then for you diehard fans who have never been to spring training, if you get an opportunity, no matter where you're at, I've been to the West Coast or Arizona and Florida to see both. And it's just a good time. It's a very great atmosphere. The games don't really matter. So everyone's just there enjoying the sunshine and the food and the festivities and all day games. Well, not all, but mostly day games. And so you see the game and then you have your evening still for dinners and such, and great environment. It's usually you got spring break or Easter vacation going, so you're able to get away. For those who have never done it, you got to get to spring training for at least a couple of days. It's a great little vacation with some built-in entertainment in the process. And for any baseball fan, it's an absolute must. So the season is upon us. I used to go to spring training as an umpire, and it was so much fun. And then we jumped into the regular season, and it was like, oh man, here we go again, a long season. But anyway, those days are behind me. It was fun chatting with Joe about baseball in front of us. And again, talking, we hadn't chatted a whole lot. So that was a blast. Well, that will wrap up today's show. And I appreciate Joe Demers sitting down with me, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in on another episode of the Get Home Safe podcast. As always, there's plenty of ways to follow the podcast. You know where to subscribe and rate, review, all that stuff. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our YouTube channel, Get Home Safe Podcast. If you want to watch these conversations, you can do so. Our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter handle is out there as well. Most of you guys follow that, and you can find information about upcoming episodes. If you want to leave a voice message, you want to contact me directly through email, you can do that at gethomesafepodcast@yahoo.com. And our voicemail link is in the episode notes as always. So repeat that just for maybe new listeners and such. And for those new to the podcast, we do this every Friday, or most Fridays, I should say, having a long form conversation with someone. It could be talking about their life, their journey, or just talking about their favorite sport like we did today, and maybe some news and current events and things. It's kind of an open-ended discussion, and had a lot of fun today with Joe Deemers. I've been recording these podcasts for our Friday conversations a lot recently, and been able to kind of put a few together that I can then piece out every Friday. So they're not all like recorded the day before, but they come out great either way. And I've really enjoyed sitting down with so many people, and I'm always looking to record with more people. It can be someone I know, like Ginger Deemers, or it can be someone I've never really talked to before in Joe Deemers. So it kind of varies, and either way, I'm good with it. So if you have any suggestions for me, guys, definitely throw them my way. If you think someone would be an entertaining guest, maybe have them listen to an episode or two of the podcast and see if they would have any interest in coming on here. So this thing's been going over a year and a half now. Can't believe we're into, well, all 2 years now, going into season 3, approaching 400 episodes here in a few months. And man, it's just been such a blessing for me to talk to people and just get on here and have a conversation. It's been a lot of fun. Tuesdays is just me rambling away about my thoughts on current events and sports topics, things of that nature. So Tuesdays and Fridays right now is our format. And I look forward to you joining us again next week for my opinions on Tuesdays and a fun conversation with somebody on Friday. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. Baseball is here. The weather's getting better. It's always good here in Southern California, but it's light later at night, so kids can play out longer, and baseball games can go longer, and all these great things. Can't wait to get things rolling here. So guys, have a great weekend. Thanks again for tuning in. Joe Deemers, you are awesome. And guys, as always, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town or around in third base, get home safe.